Hello, my name is Calvin Robinson, and today I'll be presenting my research, The Businessmen and Politics Movement, Origins and Contemporary Public Opinion. In the mid-90s, the U.S. Congress saw an increase in the percentage of business people in both chambers of Congress, shown in Figure 1 here. This trend has continued through to today in both the House and the Senate, as the 7-year moving averages have grown relatively steadily in both chambers, shown in Figure 2 here. This trend is significant because Congress members with a background in business tend to vote for more conservative economic positions when compared to other members of Congress. To date, political science research has failed to explain why this occupational trend is occurring. Ironically, in the late 1950s, there was a push from America's business community for business people to run for office in order to achieve the very trend that we're seeing today. The goals of my research were to explain the origins of this businessmen and politics movement that started in the late 1950s, to discuss the results of that movement, to explain how Americans view business people and politics today, and to explore whether favorable views of business people are driving the increase in business people in Congress. In order to explain the origins of the businessmen and politics movement, and to discuss the results of this movement, I analyzed secondary historical sources. In order to explain how Americans today view business people and politics, and to explore whether favorable views of business people are driving the increase of business people in Congress, I analyzed public opinion data from Pew and Gallup. In this section, I've provided the results of my historical research. The 1958 congressional election represented a serious defeat for the American business community. In the House, Republicans' seat deficit grew significantly. In the Senate, Republicans lost several prominent pro-business leaders. American labor saw the 1958 congressional election as a huge success. The AFL-CIO had endorsed the majority of members in both houses. These inroads from labor unions alarmed the American business community, and they jumped into action. Corporations set up courses to teach their white-collar workforce how to become politically active, including how to effectively run for office. However, the results of this businessmen and politics movement were suboptimal. Many white-collar workers failed to apply the lessons they learned in their courses to their everyday lives. Many expressed frustration with their local parties, who they saw as unappreciative of their talents. Other white-collar workers admitted that political involvement took up too much time and didn't provide enough personal benefit. On a national level, the businessmen and politics movement failed to sustainably increase the percentage of business people in either chamber of Congress. By 1965, the Senate had actually seen a 3% decrease in the amount of business people. Ironically, 3 decades after the less than successful businessmen and politics movement, Congress began to see growth in the percentage of business people in Congress, as I mentioned. I also mentioned that researchers have failed to explain the cause of this trend. However, one explanation may be Americans' favorable views of business people today. In 2014, Gallup conducted a survey of Americans asking whether the country would be governed better or governed worse if more people in certain groups were in political office. According to the survey, 81% of respondents said that if more people with business and management experience were in political office, the country would be governed better, while 13% said it would be governed worse. You can see the results here in Figure 3. Then, in 2015, Pew Research conducted a survey of Americans and their views of 3 different groups: elected officials, business leaders, and typical Americans. Respondents were asked if 5 different terms applied to each group at least fairly well. Of the 3 groups, Americans were most likely to view business leaders as intelligent and least likely to view them as lazy and selfish. And, compared with elected officials, business leaders were more likely to be viewed as honest. The results can be seen here in Figure 4. The data clearly show that the number of business people in Congress is increasing, and that in recent years, Americans have expressed favorable views of business people. This could explain the increased representation in Congress. However, some scholars claim that public opinion is not the reason for the increase. For example, Brian Adams, Edward Lasher, and Danielle Martin argue that American voters commonly express abstract support for business candidates, but these candidates don't actually enjoy atypical electoral success. I recommend that further research be conducted in order to determine whether favorable public opinion of business people has caused the increase in business people in the U.S. Congress since 1995, and if not, which factors are causing this increase.